Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Mess with My Car. Lose your home. I should start by saying that I don't live in the best area of town. But it wasn't absolutely awful until the summer began, when my next-door neighbor's teenage kids and their friends had nothing better to do than loiter around all day and be loud and commit petty crimes. The people below my next-door neighbors had a rock thrown through their window, several neighbors had minor car damage like dents from them sitting on cars or throwing basketballs around and inevitably hitting cars. These fools would bang on people's doors for the fun of it. And often sit in a large group clogging up the only stairs up to my apartment and be rude when I would try to step over or around them. They never stood up for a second to let me by. I should add that 2 or 3 families lived next door in a 2-bedroom unit, literally at least 12 to 15 people, way over capacity. They also had friends over constantly and would yell and scream and fight with each other all the time. Luckily never too late at night though. Despite all of these nuisances, I never complained about them. Sure, it was obnoxious as hell, but I'm not really a complainer and I wasn't losing any precious sleep. I'm a pretty easygoing tenant, I pay my rent and bills on time every month, my dog never barks, etc. The events, unfortunately for my good neighbors and myself, their crimes escalated in severity. They actually broke into my cool downstairs neighbor's place. He caught them red-handed trying to steal his crap. He called the cops and made a police report and everything, but somehow nothing was done. I suspect it is because he used to be cool with these neighbors and actually look after and feed some of the kids. So he had a relationship with them and they had been in his place before. Anyway, them breaking into his place really freaked me out because my downstairs neighbor is a huge, scary-looking guy but is actually super nice, while I'm a 22-year-old girl who lives with 2 other girls my age. So, if they would break into his place, I contemplated getting security cameras for my own place after my downstairs neighbor told me what happened to him and showed me his new setup. But unfortunately, before I could, that's when it happened. Days later, when I got up in the morning to go to school, my tire was completely flat. They slashed my tire. They slashed my tire. I was livid. I had never done anything to any of them. My tires are good quality tires and were brand new, literally 3 weeks old, and a gift from my dad. I barely had the money to replace my slashed tire. As most of you probably know, car insurance and tire warranties don't cover vandalism to tires, so I had to buy the replacement in full. I was so enraged at this point. These craps have been committing crimes, destroying property, and basically getting away with it despite complaints to management and police reports. I swore to my girlfriend and myself that day that I would see to it that these horrible people would get evicted. I didn't care how long it took. I knew it was a matter of time before they did something else that would warrant it. After I filed a police report, I showed my manager the pictures of my clearly slashed tire to file a complaint. He promised if they got one more complaint of property damage they would be out. I also got the security system I wanted. The revenge. Well, the revenge isn't the most glamorous or exciting revenge. What did I do? I documented everything. Every time they clogged the stairs, which they had been warned about multiple times, every time they were exceptionally loud, which they had been warned about multiple times as well, every time they did anything that would count as a violation that I had overlooked in the past. Nope, duck these people. Easygoing Canary QT was no more, not for them. My apartment manager actually encouraged me to report him for every little thing, I suspect because he was sick of these buttholes too. But I knew before I would send him my compiled report I had to have something good. 2 weeks passed. I hardly saw them around. All quiet on the Western Front. Until they finally came back, thinking that they had laid low long enough and the heat was off of them. Since the tire slashing incident, I have been parking at the building across the parking lot, instead of right in front of my own building because that's where they always used to hang out. On Sunday I caught one of the buttholes sitting on the hood of my car talking to a bunch of the others, but they all ran away before I could yell at them to get off of my car. Upon further inspection I noticed that there was actually a large, shallow dent on my hood from them repeatedly sitting on my car. My roommate's car had a similar dent, and I see them sit on my downstairs neighbor's friend's car all of the time. Well, today, I decided to park right in front of my apartment where I used to park, in full view of my new security system. Lo and behold, footage of them sitting and banging on my car. I sent my manager the angriest email I could muster while still maintaining completely respectful language, with the footage attached of course. I told him something must be done. I got an email back within minutes thanking me for notifying him, and informing me that he would serve them a notice to vacate tomorrow. They will have 30 days. Duck with my car? Lose your home. As I type this while sipping my fresh iced tea, I can hear those shithead kids playing basketball, probably hitting more cars in the process, and shouting and laughing. I can't help but smile knowing they won't be laughing for long. The next one is titled, Be a Creeper and Stalk Have Fun in the Bathroom. This story happened to my wife when she was in high school. There was a certain gentleman, whom we shall call Creeper, who was friends with her older brother, Troy. Troy and Creeper would get together at my wife's house for sleepovers and video games. During these visits, Creeper would be really damn creepy. He would sidle up next to her and say, "Hi," and not respond to any further conversation. If she walked by, he would follow her into whatever room she was going into. This was even at school, where he would see her with her friends, and just sit there, never joining conversation and being all around creepy. She even told her parents, but due to excessive politeness they instructed her to be nice and not make a scene. This even after Creeper blocked a doorway, not allowing my wife to leave the room. Her mother walked by, noticed something was wrong and said, "Hey Creeper, why don't you go see Troy?" He lingered for a moment, relented and sauntered to Troy's room. By this point my wife has had enough. She went upstairs and mixed up chocolate milk. In her brother's she put the regular mix, but in Creeper's she put in an excessive amount of chocolate XLAX. I don't know what that stuff tastes like, but I don't think Creeper knew either. What edges this revenge as pro is that my wife carefully gave the correct glasses of chocolate milk to the correct recipient, and promptly hid all the toilet paper in the house. Then went to bed. All she remembers of that night is laying awake until she could hear Creeper run to the bathroom. She went to sleep shortly after that. And Creeper was never at the house again. He may have figured it out, cause he never bothered her again either. The next one is titled, Egg My House, I'll Immobilize You. About a year ago my best friend's girlfriend broke up with him. It was a pretty devastating breakup considering it lasted about 2 years and he deeply loved her. Of course now he looks back on it and sees it as a joke considering he was 17 in high school. When he broke up, his ex-girlfriend, who we will call Lily, first name that came to mind, told all her friends that he was a butthole and that he hit her and so on. Me, knowing my best friend for a major part of my life, knew that this wasn't true. Lily and her friends decided to egg and TP my friend's house, we'll call him Alan. How did we find out? We had our good girlfriend become good friends for about a week and then disappear after knowing the date, July 27th. We built the best plan we could. And we got my dad and his dad involved into the plan considering we had pretty rad dads. That day I spent the night at his house and my dad stayed up late with his dad having a few beers. At about 11 p.m. we hear some faint voices and faint ticks from the eggs. Time to kick the plan into action. Alan, his dad and I make sure we don't turn of any lights and sneak out the back and look for the girl's car, and we see it out of the view of the house. We knew we could go all the way through with the plan. We get to the car, with our hearts pounding and trying not to laugh our asses off, and get on with it. My dad meanwhile starts filming the whole egging process for possible legal reasons. In the end the video barely showed anything because there wasn't enough light. Back to us. We pull up 2 small car jacks and pull up the car and take off the front wheels bolts. We then leave one of the jacks in the shadows waiting for the right moment. The girls finish egging, blah blah blah, they get in the car and they turn it on and pull a bit forward and then slam the brakes after the car slanted forward, barely held up by the jack. I then proceed to come out of the shadows and knock on the window, horror movie style, as Alan knocks on the other and my dad and Alan's dad stand in front of the car holding 2 front tires. If you're asking, they put the jack back under when the girls freaked out. Alan's dad comes over to the window and asks for it to be pulled down. He then proceeds to look at each of the girls dead in the eye for a solid 10 seconds before saying, "It's past legal curfew and I believe you just vandalized my house, so you either have the choice of staying all morning cleaning the roof and the yard, or I call the police at this instant with video footage of you doing this." My dad proceeds to lifting up the video camera screen and showing a small clip, which one of the 4 girls starts crying. The girls ended up staying and cleaning, and Alan's dad called the cops in the middle of the cleaning and explained to him what happened. All the girls got charged with vandalism. The officer was kind enough to drive each girl to their respective house and explain in depth to their parents what happened. One of the girls got punished further because she snuck out through her window. Alan? He was the happiest I ever saw him, and his dad thanked my dad and me. And thanked us for one of the best nights in his life. The next one is titled, Shortchange Your Workers? It might just come back to haunt you. For context, I started work at a frozen yogurt shop, Menchie's, at age 14. Here in the US, there's loads of laws governing how much and how often those under the age of 16 can work. But many employers are willing to ignore it simply because their employees don't know any better. Anyways, fast forward a few months and I'm basically the #1 employee for any job nobody else will do, because being 14 at the time I thought that my boss was king. They would always have me close the store by myself, which is important in this story later. Usually, there had to be a shift lead or a manager in the store at all times, but for some reason, although I was neither, I was always assigned the 8+ hour closing shift solo. I was making minimum wage for this kind of work, so needless to say, when I found out what the actual managers and shift leads were making, I was upset. They were making triple my wage. So I hatched a brilliant little plan for revenge and, if everything went well, some cash to sweeten the deal. So I put in my 2 weeks at the beginning of the pay period, so that my last day would also be payday. When that fateful last day rolled around, I collected my check and started my shift as usual. Another thing you should know is my location had a tip jar, but the employees got none of the tips. It all went straight to management at the end of the pay period. Supposedly so they could divide it up equally, they didn't between the employees. Before closing, I took the entire jar full of bills and coins, and walked out the door. I wish the story ended there, but it doesn't. The next day, it was time to count tips. I woke up to 8 missed calls from crazy owner, and a text message threatening legal action if I didn't return the tips. Here's where the pro-revenge starts. As soon as I heard the words, legal action, I was overjoyed. I knew something she didn't. Before leaving, I had printed off all 52 of my time sheets for the year, with every hour I had worked down to the minute. I responded that she could go ahead and call the cops, but I also said that OHSA, America's labor regulatory body, and Menchie's corporate would be interested to find out that a location had been defying labor laws for years. To top it all off, I sent a photo of my pile of timesheets. I never heard from her again. I'm guessing she decided that a few hundred in tips was easier to replace than a few grand in fines for breaking labor laws, but I got the last laugh. You see, even after she left me alone, I still reported her to corporate. Not sure exactly what happened, but long story short, that location is now owned by corporate, and is no longer a franchise. The next one is titled, Porno Divorce. So this little story begins with me and my wife happily married. We had 2 wonderful daughters, 13 and 10, and a pretty healthy relationship. Also I though. Anyways, at some point things started to appear off. She got very clingy to her phone all of a sudden, made sure to delete the saved password feature on our common PC, stated having phone calls that suddenly ended when I came into the house room. You can probably guess what it was. Now having 15 years of marriage behind us, I was hoping it wasn't what it obviously seemed to be. So one day when she told me she was going to spend some time with the girls, I decided to follow her. Sure enough, I find her driving to a hotel to meet with. Let's just call him Peter. To say it was a gut punch was an understatement. I literally cried for an hour straight. After I was done with my self-wallowing phase, I decided the best course was getting even. I thought of several scenarios that may or may not have involved me beating Peter into a bloody pulp. Eventually I decided to do things more civilly and more importantly legally, but only just. So the first part of the plan was gathering evidence. I could have just gotten a pie, but I had something better in mind. So one day when my wife was at her job and the kids at school, I installed some small secret cameras and microphones I had bought. Due to the setup of our bedroom, I even managed to get one perfectly overlooking the bed. I didn't however use them while I was at home. So a couple of days pass, when I proposed to my wife that the second to next weekend I should take the girls on a trip to land site that I will not reveal, and stay a night too. At this point I should also mention that due to her job being pretty demanding and frequently exhausting her, and just due to our various passions and talents, I was always the main caregiver. I more often than not was the one cooking. I took a far more active role in raising the girls and showed them a lot more patience and attention. I didn't spoil them or anything like that. So me going alone with the girls on a trip wasn't that weird. This part will also be very important later. So 2 weeks pass, in which time I get my affairs in order and contact a lawyer to write up a separation agreement that would involve me keeping residence and custody. I go on the trip, try to not give anything away to the girls and wait and see if Peter and my wife fall into the trap. When I returned I checked the recordings of the weekend, and sure enough it's a 36 hours duck fest. When they weren't ducking, the dialogue was something even better. I found out that Peter had a wife, though more on her later. But even worse, they also talked about me. And besides the obvious sexual character assassination that I expected about how small my dick was, how I didn't satisfy her, etc. There was some really hurtful stuff, like her telling Peter some of my deepest secrets and shameful stories that I had only told her about, just so they could have a laugh. So at this point I didn't have any doubts on what to do. The next day when the kids left, but before my wife left, I confronted her with the video and told her that either she signs the separation agreement and leaves the house, or the girls are going to receive an in-depth explanation of all the orifices mommy got ducked in. I wasn't gonna do that, just to be clear. I love my daughters too much, but I put the threat there and she was too emotional to realize my bluff. She went through all the stages, denying everything, trying to bargain, threatening me, and getting angry. I let it go through all that stuff. Eventually she signed the paper and she departed that very evening after she told her goodbyes to the girls. I didn't show or tell the girls anything graphic. I was always very honest with them, which is another reason why I was always the favorite parent, so I just said that mommy had been unfaithful. The younger took some time figuring it out, but that was made up by my older getting mightily upset. She had just gotten her first boyfriend, as I'm not sure the term really applies at that age, but she knew enough of the world to get upset big time. This would be important at a would-be custody battle, as though she did for the moment agree to give over custody. I feared, and I was right to fear, that she would try and fight me for the kids. What I didn't expect was for her to use her visitation rights to talk crap about me. Basically she started telling my younger about how it was all my fault for not forgiving her. Her lawyer even started demanding she receive custody. There was no way for her to receive money or the house as she was caught cheating, and in my state that means quite a lot in divorce proceedings. So I finally activated my nuclear revenge plan. Enter trip to South Carolina. Why South Carolina? Simple. Fort Sumter. I really wanted my daughters to see it. I definitely did not go there because it is one of the last places where revenge porn isn't illegal, and where I could upload my wife and Peter's escapades with no worries on Pornhub and other such sites, as you cannot be prosecuted for crimes that weren't illegal when and where they were committed. I sent the links to my wife's employer, her clients, and everybody in her line of work just to be sure, to Peter's wife and to his firm. Peter soon got a divorce. I feel sorry for his wife as she was an innocent victim in all of this, but I think it's better that she found out. As for my wife, this was the end of any chance to get custody. She soon got fired from her job of 8 years. And while the revenge porn part was a real dick move that did count in court, it being done in South Carolina, it wasn't illegal or prosecutable. So it could only be used as a minus about my personality, but with my wife unemployed and practically being blacklisted in her profession due to being on Pornhub, as well as the girls, or to put it better, my younger being told what to do by my older, stating they wanted to stay with me, there was no question on who would get the custody. Yes, due to her being unemployed, I got no alimony, but honestly I make enough money to sustain both me and the girls, so I don't care, and I'm good enough at caring for them and they are old enough to allow me to have a full-time job. Several months later, my wife is still unemployed, though I do not know if it's from the porn or from the virus. The girls are growing up just fine, and don't seem to mind not seeing their witch mother. The last time I communicated with my ex-wife was on Facebook, where she told me how I ruined her life and her relation to her daughters, but honestly I think she earned it. The last one is titled, "My Revenge on the Guy Who Slept With Me Then Called Me a Prostitute." Well, I suppose first background info. This guy owned a bar, and at the time my former best friend was dating his best friend. We all spent a lot of time together privately hanging out there getting the bar ready. It was open but still needing remodeling work, so we all pitched in and helped. This entire time our friends keep trying to get us together and he keeps hitting on me. We had a nice little banter back and forth, but I was desperately in love with the most hopeless situation. After about 3 months my relationship ends, so one day we all hanging out laying tile on the bar floor, fun right? The entire time I'm chugging wine like it came from a box and he's hitting on me hard. I should say this dude is hot, former Marine and completely feffed up. I knew this at the time that he had a coke habit and just was bad news, but still a cool guy. I wasn't looking for anything, just seriously broken-hearted and needed to feel wanted. Well, our friends go over to the other side of the place playing video poker. Eventually we start making out, then crap happens and we're in the bathroom for 2 minutes of shitty sex. Well, I go to leave and I don't have my shirt and he's all don't tell anyone blah blah stuff, and cause well I'm kinda a witch. I come out and immediately say when they ask where we were was just got done ducking in the bathroom. They laugh and were like yeah we know, we heard you, and start laughing wondering if we were gonna fess up to it. Well, my friend's man starts giving him a hard time about stamina blah blah. Next day I'm told bar owner denies now we ever had sex. I'm a lying witch and never allowed in the bar again. And that's what upset me, because I've done serious work there for free while paying for my drinks, tipping and everything, and now I can't come back because we had sex. What the hell? Well, I let it go. I'm not at the desire for revenge, cause like I said, my heart had been broke by someone else and I wasn't gonna waste my energy on a man acting like a woman, cause he couldn't last 5 minutes. Well, our friends keep dating, keeping me updated on bar owner's life, like getting fined for illegal gambling, blowing his mortgage payment at a strip club, plenty of stuff. Now I'll mess with him whenever our friends are up there. I'll call their cell, and whoever he is hitting on that night, I'll make sure they know what a lousy lay he is, nothing major. Well, then the big news comes in. The reason we all know each other is his best friend. My former friend's boyfriend is also my step-cousin. He was my late stepmother's nephew. I find out bar owner is having an affair with my married stepsister. Also during this time I find out he's also a drug buddy of my dad's. My stepsister despised my father. If she knew of his relationship with my dad she would run. Well, I'm torn. I know if I found out other people could, and my sister could lose everything, and if my dad found out it would kill her. I want to confront her or him, something, so I plan. Sometimes, however, before you can start, the perfect opportunity presents itself. Bar owner drives one of those decaled trucks with the logo of his bar on it, one of a kind. My stepsister is a hairstylist with her own salon conveniently located right beside my doctor's office. I go to the doctor regularly, and whose truck do I see while passing parked in the salon? Yes, it's bar owner getting his hair cut. So of course I park and walk in. She's just starting to cut his hair. He sees me in the mirror, becomes puzzled. I shout out at my sister. I walk over and proceed to gib slap him. My dominance fully established, I proceeded to tell him, "That's my sister." Then his jaw drops and an expression I can only describe as the face someone makes while shitting themselves appears. I then tell her what good friends he and my dad are, code for he's a serious junkie, WTF are you thinking, between us, and walk out. With the exception of the assault, I'm as calm as can be. Now this wasn't my revenge. Before I came I had sent her a text informing her of everything, including our hookup with surprise had happened during the affair. Now I know her, I know she'll check her phone for a second to calm down before she cuts his hair. So in this text I tell her if she would like to do whatever she wanted to his hair and he didn't like it, I would be happy to cover the cost. So she proceeds to butcher his hair to the point where he was practically bald in a few spots, and the only way to fix it was to shave his head entirely. Best part is he was still in such shock and trying to fix things with her he actually paid for it himself. Thanks for listening.